Jay here, welcome to Eons of Battle. I recently participated in a friendly Spearhead tournament, and I very nearly won. There's like a running gag that I am bad at games, but I'm not that bad. It's just I play against Sean like exclusively, and his all tank skew list that is just like, if you don't bring anti-tank, you automatically lose the game. I have been loving Spearhead. It is the lovely version of Age of Sigmar, where you just bring the contents that come in the Spearhead boxes and you play them against one another. And it's really like the scenarios are really, really good and the objectives are really, really good. There's a lot of room for like, if you just sit down and play a game, it'll be good, but there's room for like getting good at the game. And so I got the Ogre Ma Tribes box, built it up in record time. I've been working on painting it here and there, and I'm like, probably halfway done painting it, probably a little bit more than halfway done painting it, but I have been loving playing this Spearhead. I have played it an absolute ton, and I played it in a friendly tournament. At my local Warhammer store, they were having a 16-player event for Spearhead, and I took my Ogre Ma Tribes, and I almost won! Sean was there with me playing his Soulblight Gravelords, and so we started the day playing Spearhead. I really like the green side of the board for my Spearhead. My Ogre Ma Tribes, there's two different sides. There's the green side, I forget, they have names, but there's the green side and the red side. The green side, the objectives are closer together, and the twist cards that you pull to see what happens each turn are a little bit more skewed towards healing and defense, where the red side of the board, the objectives are very spread out, and the cards are based on scoring points and killing things. My ogres are not necessarily bad at killing things. Each Spearhead in Age of Sigmar has essentially a faction ability and then some secondary abilities, traits that you can pick before the game starts to kind of help give you a little bit of an edge on your opponents. My ogres don't really have those. Our army rule is only the Gluttons, the Leadbelchers, and my commander actually start the game on the board. My Gun and my Mournfang pack start the game essentially in strategic reserve, coming on at the start of my turn 3. Now, that does put me on the back foot a little bit, and that is essentially my army rule. I don't have a buff, I have essentially a nerf, but it's kind of deserved because the ogre stat line is lovely. My data sheets my army is exactly what ogres should be. Very dumb, very simple, very tanky, and just good. My strategy was actually to start out as an ogre ball. And so I had all of my army kind of massed up on two objectives, and then kind of daring my opponent to come at me because I like to go second. That's my sneaky little strategy, is if I get to go second, then I can hold out until turn 3 when my nearly indestructible other ogres show up. And so that's what I did all 3 games, and it worked out really, really well. My first game was against a lovely Seraphon army. His, what's it called? The big dinosaur. The Carnosaur. The Carnosaur just straight up ate 2 of my ogres. It has an ability where it can roll a dice, and if you beat a certain threshold, then the model just gets eaten. And so 2 of my ogres got ate by the Carnosaur, which was hilarious. But I ended up winning that game, and so I went into round 2, and I was playing against the Flesh Eater Courts. The Flesh Eater Courts are a very interesting army, but they lack a little bit of damage dealing, and so I won that game too. And so moving into turn 3, there was 3 undefeated players that day. It was myself, Sean, and my opponent for round 3. And so going into round 3, I was feeling pretty good, but I was actually feeling really, really nervous because historically, I never win war games. When I played in a 40k RT, I lost all of my games. And so going into turn 3, I was just feeling fine. I was having fun, playing some 40k, but there was no worry about like winning or placing. But all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, I could win the day. Because I think I had more points than Sean had at that point. Like, I could win the whole thing. And this has never happened before. This is amazing. And so my final game was against the Slaves to Darkness, which is a tricky matchup for my ogres. Because Slaves to Darkness, they hit really hard, they're pretty darn tanky, and they love to turn 1 alpha charge. Immediately upon the start of the game, his entire army charged my entire army, which again is only half my army starting the game. and he whittled me down to nothing by the end of turn 2. But then my Mournfang and Cannon showed up on the other side of the board, and I was back in the game. Even though he had basically knocked me out of the game, we were still neck and neck in points. And so in turn 3, and I was so nervous, and we were both sweating the game so hard because we were both undefeated. We both had a shot at the title, but I made a bad misplay in turn 3. My little cannon, I got a little too excited when it showed up on the board, and it fired its gun at the wrong squad. It fired its cannon at the squad that I wanted my Mournfangs to charge, and so it turned a 8-inch deep strike, or an 8-inch charge that I'm almost like certain to get, into a 9-inch, or I think it might have even been a 10-inch charge, because I killed 2 guys, and then he removed the 2 front guys to make that charge. He played very well. And so I failed the charge. And at the end of turn 3, it cost me a point, and my opponent got a point. And at the end of turn 4, we were playing our little hearts out at end of turn 4, which Spearhead only goes up in 4 rounds. At the end of turn 4, I lost by 2 points. We played a near perfect game, but I lost by 2 points. And those 2 points would have been if I didn't shoot this cannon. It was really, really fun. And so Sean was playing, Sean ended up winning his 3rd game. And so he went undefeated all day, and my opponent went undefeated all day. And so Sean ended up with the gold, my opponent ended up with the silver, and then I ended up with the bronze. Still pretty darn good. And our store manager made us little trophies out of the Skaven Tide measuring stick. And so I got a lovely 3-inch measuring tool. And let me tell you, you can do a lot with 3 inches. It's a really cute, fun little trophy painted up by the store manager, who I love. He's a really, really fun guy. But it was really, really fun. Spearhead is a phenomenally fun game. I wish so much that 40K Combat Patrol was anything close to Spearhead, because Spearhead is actually a really fun game. Even after the tournament, I have gone back to painting these guys, and really, while I'm painting up these ogres, it's a very new experience because I paint 40K armies and armies for other games, and I paint a lot of kill teams. And kill teams, it's very easy to be like, I'm painting these guys, and that's gonna be it forever. I'm not gonna paint more of these things. But when I'm painting up the ogres, I have to like remind myself of that. I'm like, I'm really struggling on this Mournfang. But then I think to myself, yeah, but I've only ever got to paint 2. And then I'm completely done with Mournfangs for the rest of my life. And so then that helps me to be like, maybe I do put a little more highlights on the face. Maybe I do something a little fancier on the fur. Maybe I highlight every single rivet on this guy's big old belly. And then once I get these guys done, then I get to get another Spearhead. And then maybe I get to play in another Spearhead tournament. And maybe I'll actually win that one. It was so much fun. I got to see so many games being played and play so many games. All of my games lasted just a smidge over an hour, which is really, really good. The turns, I think we had an hour and 45 for each game, and that was plenty of time. Almost everybody finished all of their games. In the middle table, there was Maggotkin of Nurgle versus Maggotkin of Nurgle, and they went down to the wire, but that's because every single one of both of their armies had a 5-up Feel No Pain, which is called a Ward Save in Age of Sigmar. That was a really, really fun game. But yeah, Spearhead is just fantastic. I played a ton with my Ogrema tribes. I've also played with my Sylvaneth and a little bit with the Skaven. And each army has its own feel and its own kind of strategies and things that it wants to do. And Spearhead does such a lovely job of kind of being a simple game while giving you the opportunities that you need. Like my ogres, I like the green side of the mat. I like the green twist cards. I like the objectives being a little closer together. And I like in terms of placing the terrain, because each player gets to place one large and one small piece of terrain on the board. So I get to do really fun things. Pro tip, if you like the green side of the board, you should take that large terrain piece and put it 3 inches away from your deployment zone edge on the long side, because that makes it way harder for your opponent to get the twist ability where they need, or to get the secondary objective card where they need to be in control of the large terrain feature in your deployment zone. And so this, I was always able to get this off every single game because I strategically placed it in my deployment zone by my lead belchers. who hold down the fort in my home field. There's like all of these little tiny things. And then I do something completely different when I play my Sylvaneth. I think my Sylvaneth might like the red side of the board. You would think they like the green side because that's like the grassy, like foresty nature side of the board, but they might like the red more because they actually can be very killy and they have a lot of abilities to heal within their own data sheets. They don't necessarily have the units to go capture objectives. I don't know, I need to play a few more games with my Sylvaneth to really nail down a strategy, but I've got my ogres on lock. There was no army that I faced that I've really, really struggled with. I've also played these guys into the Ghosts, the Night Haunt. I really want to play Night Haunt. A buddy of mine plays Night Haunt, and they don't do much killing, which is kind of funny because in Age of Sigmar right now, like 4th edition just launched, and apparently Night Haunt are OP, like they're problematic. But in Spearhead, they lack a lot of damage dealing, but they have so many units and so many bodies, and they all have like a 50-50 save. So I almost want to try that army out and see if I just zoom onto all of the objectives because they each have a movement value of 8 inches, I believe. So you can just turn 1 beyond every single objective and then just see what happens. Like if you max score early in the game, you might be able to ride that out until late game, but it looks like a really, really interesting army to play with. I am slightly concerned about balance. Now, the balance does not at all seem bad. Every army played decently, but I do think Night Haunt is a little bit tricky to play and Flesh Eater Courts seem a little bit tricky to play. I haven't played Flesh Eater Courts, but I've played into Flesh Eater Courts a few times, and they seem like a glass hammer army where if things start to go wrong for them, it can go real wrong real fast. Where ogres, I've always got that ability to like, no matter how bad the game goes, my Mournfang and Cannon are showing up turn 3 to save the day. And so I've got that like safety cushion. And similarly, Soulblight Gravelords. I'm a little nervous if Soulblight Gravelords are OP because holy cow, can they heal like nobody's business? The Blood Knights are incredibly powerful, and the Vampire Lord. I know Sean was getting lucky, but literally every single turn, my ogres would knock the Vampire Lord down to like almost dead, and then instantly it would heal back up. And then I would knock it down to almost dead, and then it instantly would heal back up. Every single turn, it was madness. So Vampire Lords do seem very strong. I think the ogres do seem very strong. The Slaves to Darkness feel very, very strong, but then there's also there's like 20 different spearheads and they all feel really, really good. Daughters of Cain have me interested because they're kind of the opposite of the ogres, where the ogres can totally rely on their girth to get the job done. The Daughters of Cain actually are really good in close combat, but incredibly wimpy. They are the definition of a glass cannon. And their army slowly gets better over the course of the game, getting some slight benefits on like turn 2, 3, and 4. So I think that would be one that I'm really interested in. The Caradron Overlords essentially get a rhino. They actually have a transport because the Caradron Overlords are kind of a 40k army in Age of Sigmar. They're really bizarre. That would be a really, really fun one. And of course, I also just kind of want the Seraphon because I always drool over the Seraphon models, and their Spearhead comes with some really, really fun units that just look incredibly fun to paint up. They're not super high on my list just because they also feel very ogre-y in their board presence, but man, Spearhead is tons of fun. I almost won a 16-player friendly Spearhead tournament, and it was a Spearhead tournament a month into Age of Sigmar 4th edition and Spearhead even existing, so we were all pretty new to the game. But man, if you ever want to do a tournament, I would say a Spearhead tournament is an excellent choice because no matter how sweaty or how no matter how sweaty your opponent is, it's a pretty darn simple game with really, really simple options in front of you. And so it's probably gonna be a really fun game no matter what. All of my games are super fun. All of my opponents were incredibly fun to play with. I didn't have to play Sean all day, which is always a plus. So it was a great day. But you know what else is great? That's right, our website, EonsOfBattle.com. EonsOfBattle.com is the place to find our merch, and you better believe I was rolling the Nick and Jay dice during the tournament, and I attribute it to my success. And our website is the best way to support us doing what we do with a membership. Every month, members get 1 credit that can be used towards our newest terrain set or any previous set we have ever made. For the month of September, we here at Eons of Battle are proud to announce the Whimsical Cottages. Fantasy buildings perfect for any game with a ye olde flair. Move your models around the quaint homes, the roomy houses, or set up shop with the tavern. With this terrain, you can make an entire town complete with pumpkins, giant mushrooms, and trees to really fill out a game board. I have been loving Spearhead, and I'm really excited to get these guys done, not just because when they're done, then I'm gonna feel like I'm allowed to buy another Spearhead box, but I've really been enjoying painting these models. If you notice, none of the bases are done, and that is because I wanna do something very special with the bases, something you guys might see in the near future. Let me know in the comments below if you guys have tried out Spearhead, what you think of the different teams, and how you've been enjoying the game, because I have been loving it. Thanks for watching.